Winter 1887 in the Wyoming Territory was merciless. Snowstorms rolled across the plains like oceans of white, swallowing tracks and footprints in moments. At the Cheyenne train station, a lone figure staggered through the biting wind. Her name was Elizabeth Montgomery. She had escaped Philadelphia with nothing but the clothes on her back and a determination that refused to break. After defending herself from a terrifying attack, Elizabeth had lost her home, her family's support, and nearly all hope. She thought she was fleeing the past, but destiny had been waiting for her in the heart of the American West. Jack Thornton, a man whose wealth and influence stretched across the territory, had arrived at the station that night on business. The owner of the Double T Ranch, he was accustomed to solving problems and making decisions, but the sight of Elizabeth struggling in the storm stirred something unexpected within him. Something tender, something protective. Without hesitation, he approached, offering his coat and a steadying hand. That simple act of kindness sparked a connection neither of them could have anticipated. Elizabeth hesitated. Trust was a fragile thing for her now, shattered by betrayal and loss. Yet there was something in Jack's calm, commanding presence, something honest that made her heart hesitate and then finally take a leap. With his help, she reached the warmth of his carriage and the safety of the ranch. The Double T Ranch was unlike anything Elizabeth had ever seen. Endless fields of snow-covered plains, herds of cattle braving the winter chill, and a sprawling ranch house that seemed both grand and welcoming. Jack introduced her to the ranch hands and the small community of workers who depended on the ranch for their livelihoods. Slowly, Elizabeth began to find a place here, not just as a visitor, but as a woman with purpose. Her background as a nurse became a beacon for the settlers and cowboys of the region. The nearest town was miles away, and medical care was scarce. Elizabeth established a small clinic within the ranch, treating everything from frostbite to broken bones to illnesses that had previously gone unattended. Jack was not just a partner in life but in vision, providing resources, encouragement, and unwavering faith in her abilities. Their days were filled with challenges. Snowstorms that cut off the ranch from the nearest town, cattle stampedes that threatened the herd, and rival ranchers who sought to undermine Jack's empire tested both their courage and their bond. Yet through every trial their love grew stronger. Elizabeth admired Jack's integrity, his quiet strength, and the rare moments of tenderness he shared with her. Jack found in Elizabeth a spirit he had never encountered before. Fearless, compassionate, and fiercely independent. As the years passed, their love became the stuff of legend. The Double T Ranch flourished not only as a business but as a symbol of hope. Elizabeth's medical practice grew into a thriving frontier hospital, drawing people from across the territory. Jack's ranching empire expanded, but he measured his success not in cattle or land, but in the life he and Elizabeth were building together. The couple became pioneers in more than one sense. They broke barriers for women in medicine, for settlers in the West, and for lovers daring to defy convention. Their romance was not the quiet kind whispered about in parlor rooms. It was bold, unapologetic, and inspiring. People told stories of how Jack and Elizabeth would ride through blizzards together to reach a sick neighbor, or how Elizabeth would brave dangerous river crossings to deliver supplies to remote communities. Their story spread far beyond the Wyoming Territory. Newspapers called it a modern fairy tale of the West, a love that conquered harsh landscapes, social norms, and personal fears. Families in distant states read about Elizabeth Montgomery, the nurse who had fled Philadelphia and found not only a home but a life of purpose and love in Wyoming. Young women looked to her as proof that courage and compassion could change the world. By the time the first blooms of spring touched the ranch, Jack and Elizabeth had built more than a home. They had built a legacy. Children grew up hearing tales of snowy nights at Cheyenne Station, of stampeding cattle and daring rescues, of a love so steadfast that it shaped an entire community. Generations remembered that love was not passive. It was something you nurtured, defended, and celebrated, no matter the obstacles. The night Elizabeth first arrived at the station became a legend in its own right, a story whispered in saloons, shared around campfires, and written in letters across the West. A story that proved that destiny had its own timing, and that sometimes, the most extraordinary adventures began with a single act of kindness. Jack and Elizabeth's love story was more than romance. It was inspiration. It was proof that love could thrive even in the harshest conditions, that courage could create a legacy, and that two hearts, united by respect, admiration, and devotion, could truly change the world. So if you love tales of courage, romance, and the spirit of the American frontier, subscribe and like for more stories that will transport you back in time. This is a love that conquered the wilds of the West, overcame impossible odds, and left a mark on history that generations still honor today.
Because in the end, love is not just a story, it's the heartbreak that connects us all.